This is an interview with Nick Baum, the co-founder and CEO of Tremendous. Tremendous was started originally in 2010. They went through Y Combinator as a gift card startup. We talked about their journey to profitability, how they ended up buying out investors, and then years later, starting Tremendous to focus on customer company payouts. So when companies need to pay out employees or customers or people doing surveys, they use Tremendous to do that. This is a story of being laser focused and profitable as a business. We talked about VC versus self-funded, the pros and cons of doing that, and what has made Nick and Tremendous successful so far. So hope you enjoy some good startup lessons and hear from Tremendous's story. Here is Nick Baum. All right, Nick, excited to chat with you. I love what you're working on at Tremendous and your story shifting from the gift card space. I'd love to just hear a little bit about what you went through in regards to the transition or the pivot going through YC and what you guys are building now. Do you want to just kind of fill me in on the context there and we can take it afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So we can start at the top here. Two very good friends of mine went through Y Combinator with a gift card idea. The idea being that gift cards aren't that great. It's nice that you can express the sentiment of, I thought of you, I thought of this place, but really you're trapping money at one location. So we wanted to start a business where one, that we would have a product where that wouldn't happen. And two, actually offer the ability for people to send gifts with a recommendation for the recipient to go to virtually any restaurant of the sender's choosing. And this was back in 2010. So very few restaurants and small businesses actually had their gift cards listed online. So we thought this was a win-win where more exposure for small businesses and for consumers, they get flexibility where their money isn't trapped at the business. And we did something that startups are not supposed to do. We became profitable very quickly. And what we learned was, although the product was great, we thought what mattered was the user acquisition channels. We found a way to get customers, but there was a ceiling on it. And we didn't know how to grow this business in a way where it made sense to involve venture backing. So we ended up buying out our investors. We doubled their money and actually put the business into maintenance mode. And so we had one person basically operating the business full time, and the founders did other things. One became a VC, one became an executive at AngelList, and I became involved in a few entrepreneurial things. And eventually I ended up coming back to GiftRocket because we saw this opportunity. We actually had real businesses using this consumer platform in ways that didn't make a whole lot of intuitive sense. So for example, we had Nike using GiftRocket to send survey incentives. We had SoulCycle using GiftRocket to give employee recognition awards. And we thought, hell, if they're going to use GiftRocket for this consumer platform, where really this was being used for birthdays, for weddings, and given to friends and relatives, like we can actually build something that's good for business purposes. And to give you an analogy there, this was like, imagine you're a business and you need some type of a word processor to create some type of document. And you need that for your whole organization. And someone found MS Paint and decided that's what they were going to use for all of your word processing in the organization. That's what it was like for these businesses to be using GiftRocket to be sending money for survey incentives, for marketing incentives, et cetera. So that's how we launched Tremendous in 2018. GiftRocket was founded in 2010. So there was shall we say, a brief hiatus before we got into the B2B space, but that was the genesis of it.
I'm so curious to learn a little bit more about the story. So what scale were you guys at when you realized that this just can't get any bigger or isn't worth your time? Like what revenue were you doing at that time?
Yeah. I mean, I think we were making, I don't know if we were at $1 million per year, but we're approaching that but we were reliant upon SEO. And we knew that there weren't other keywords that we were able to win easily. And we had tried paid search, and paid search was not working. Oh, we tried a lot of things. Going back to the early days, we tried a strategy of going door to door to businesses, trying to convince them to put links to Gift Rocket on their website. Not a very scalable solution. But we tried virtually everything for this segment of the business. And we stayed away from corporate back in the day. We thought, hey, our backgrounds are technical. One of my co-founders had been an early engineer at Facebook. The other one was also products and tech minded. We thought, we don't want to do sales. That was really, in retrospect, not a great perspective to have. And if we could have been doing this starting in 2010, that would have been a lot better. But we basically thought, hey, there's a limit here. We've tried all these different tactics to grow this consumer business. We didn't know what to do. We had tough conversations with investors, and we decided that doubling their money was the best approach that we could have, because really it didn't make much sense for them to convert their debt into equity and get dividends for God knows how many years. And they were made whole.
So were you guys happy with it? I mean, was it like 300K checks, or is that just your top line revenue and then marginal costs were less than that?
I mean, marginal costs were significant. I mean, it didn't take a lot to operate Gift Rocket. So it was pretty close to being all revenue that could be paid out to shareholders. So it was a very great income for this period, where founders were able to do different things, take different stabs at different businesses.
Yeah. And what was it? What was it exactly? So were you issuing gift cards? Like, how are you guys making money?
Yes. So it was the ability to suggest the business to a friend. It was like paperless post. Imagine you could take paperless post and stick a $50 bill in it and say, here you go, to your friend, deliver it by email with the suggestion of, hey, I thought of this place. You're really going to like this local restaurant. And so the card itself would include the listing of the restaurant or whatever local business to try for the recipient. And the recipient gets a choice of how they want to redeem the money. I think back in the day, it was just PayPal and ACH transfer. So they choose whether they want to put in their bank account and routing number or take it to PayPal. And then they could go to the business if they wanted, but they didn't have to. So that was the goal of really trying to embody that sentiment of thought of this business. You're really going to like this place, without actually tying the funds to the business itself. Some people love the idea. Some people weren't, crazy about it. Their overall was generally positive. But ultimately, for the business itself, what mattered was we found a way to acquire users, basically people searching for ways to gift online.
Interesting. And so for those 8 years, from 2010 to 18, the other guys started working on other things. Did you feel that it was important to keep the company, keep the team, or was everyone kind of like just burnt out from working together or working on this idea? Like how were those years?
So it varied. So I had two co-founders, and we had kept the team really small at Gift Rocket. It was just the three of us for about 2 years. And then we brought on one person to manage operations, and that person continued to run Gift Rocket while it was in maintenance mode. So two of the founders, me and my friend Koppel, who is actually one of the co-founders of Tremendous too. He's still working on the business with me. We started a real estate tech company, and we actually worked basically as real estate agents for a period of about a year, trying to find a scalable solution for selling houses in the Bay Area. We worked with these kind of monster real estate companies that had bought up a ton of homes in the downturn and started renting them, but then wanted a way to sell them now that the market had heated back up again. And we raised our hands and said, you know what, we're your guys for that. Do we have a lot of real estate experience? None, virtually none, but we'll go out there. We'll do this for you. We're going to find a way maybe to auction these properties online. And Koppel actually got his real estate license as an agent. He found a broker to put him under their license. And we went around, put up signs, filled out lead disclosures, all that fun stuff, and ended up selling 10 houses in the Bay Area. And we cashed a few checks for a few $1,000s and realized, hey, this is just too much work for us to be doing. And we didn't have a scalable solution for how we were going to sell dozens or hundreds or thousands of these homes at this time. So, I mean, there were a number of other real estate tech companies that got started around that time that had very interesting takes on the market. Compass, Open Door. We thought we were going to start something that was involved with the disposition of, maybe in an auction format, and we couldn't quite find a way to make it scalable. So that's what Koppel and I did. And then a third co-founder decided that he wanted to go into VC.
Does the auction not work because of regulatory reasons or just psychological reasons or practical reasons on needing to see the house? Or
it depends who the buyer is. So auctions are great when you have investors and they have a portfolio of different houses, different properties, because they're buying so many of them that it doesn't matter that, the toilet's broken, that there are issues with foundations, that can be amortized across the cost of all of these different properties that you're purchasing. But we were actually trying to sell from investors to individuals who would be living in the house. And just the level of education that's necessary to bring those types of consumers up to speed as far as the process, it's too great. And of course, he started talking about, well, everyone needs a broker just to walk you through that process to make you feel confident in the price that you're purchasing the home at. And that didn't exist for the vast majority of the buyers for these properties, where they would be able to go out and feel comfortable, have that level of comfort submitting bids on these properties. So we never actually got around to auctioning them off. We did it the old fashioned way, soliciting bids. And we were able to sell, I think, 10 out of the 12 homes we listed.
Interesting. And are you bullish or bearish on technology and real estate now? I guess more specifically, maybe there's specific areas of real estate, I think crypto plays an interesting role where you could allow fractional ownership of houses. Maybe auctioning doesn't work, but maybe it works in some cases. From having gone down that road, do you have any thoughts on where is worth investing more versus not?
I did have one. There was one idea I was really interested in that we did end up pursuing, but around title insurance. And are you familiar with the title process? Did you purchase the home?
I have, and I actually interviewed a guy who built title insurance, like a title insurance company. But go ahead.
Yeah. So what I always found to be super interesting was that process, that there was no ledger of who actually owns this home. And it's definitively this person. You have to actually insure that ownership right to the house, right? You have someone that's actually going to go through all of the historical records, figuring out how did the home get transferred from one party to another through these various contracts. And that's very laborious and it's expensive. It costs thousands of dollars. And you need an individual manually to do that. And a lot of the cost is that manual work. So I always thought, why isn't there some type of AI that's managing that? Some NLP to process the language to handle almost most of the cases that aren't tricky. I'm sure there's some contracts that are worded in an overly complicated way where you need someone to go in there manually to figure it out. But perhaps for the vast majority of contracts, you don't need to do that. So I was always intrigued by that idea. Otherwise, real estate, it's a complicated beast. And there's so many perverse incentives in that industry where there's so many skeletons of folks who've tried to start companies that are going to bring down the cost of agents' fees, for example, and virtually none of them have had that much traction. So I think a lot of folks come with that angle of let me upend what exists in the real estate market instead of trying to look at some of the smaller components that are still big because real estate is such a huge industry, trying to think, hey, within this system, how can I provide a better experience? And I think Compass, for example, did a really great job of that. They said, hey, let's work with brokers, or excuse me, agents, and let's buy the best brokerages. Let's figure out a way to give these agents really great software to create this brand that they want to work with and work for. And so I like their take on the market, where instead of trying to battle a industry, instead of trying to disrupt what's already there, you figure out, hey, how can I actually just improve what's working within this existing system?
Interesting. Yeah. And their basic approach is create a brand and homogenous experience. So, Compass is Compass everywhere. It's like Starbucks didn't really reinvent the coffee shop experience. They more or less just standardized it. And
Right.
yeah.
And it has a brand that, at least to our generation, feels more modern. It's more kind of consumer brand compared to, you look at Coldwell Banker, and that, at least to my eyes, doesn't feel like, I don't recognize me in that brand.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably true for a lot of folks in our generation.
Yeah. Yeah. I very much agree. So then you feel like you have some success on real estate, but there's no opportunity to scale it. Jumping back to the gift card world, what caught your eye again? Like, how did you realize this is an area you wanted to invest more time into?
Sure. So we just saw the businesses that were using Gift Rocket, and it became clear that we had the opportunity to, one, build something that really met their needs. And two, the fact that they were using Gift Rocket was just a clear sign that there's a market need for this. And my motivations as a founder really are based in, can I deliver value to other people, to companies? That gives me a lot of personal enjoyment. I love the process of building product, engaging with customers. At first I was always hesitant to do quote unquote sales, until I realized that's, again, just talking to your customers. And we shied away from that for way too long. We, at some point, were the number one result on Google for gift card API. I think that was maybe 2011. And we had a number of companies that would come to us and say, hey, we'd love to integrate with your API. And we'd go to them and say, you know what? You're not able to order an Amazon card through our API. That's not what we do. And we sent them away, rather than following the set, which would have been, there's actual real market need here. The fact that we are the number one listing is really great evidence that no one else is pursuing this market in a way that's easily accessible to the large number of potential customers here. And so I wish I could go back in time and kind of kick myself in the butt and say, hey, listen to your customers a little bit more, engage, and follow that set. So fast forward many, many years, and we still had these businesses coming to us. We had built some super, super basic tools for them. Basically, they could not even upload a spreadsheet to send out gifts to recipients. They would email it, a CSV, to the person working support and operations at the company. And then this person would go into the command line, parse this file, and then out would go whatever it is, 100 gifts to the SoulCycle employee base for some department. And it was so janky. It made no sense. And yet these companies continued to come to us. We had dozens of them. And at some point, it just became undeniable that, hey, if they're willing to use us, let's actually build something that's going to be able to help them send thousands upon thousands, millions of dollars a year to these recipients. And as we dug deeper, we really found out how challenging this problem is. And you would think that then in 2018 and now in 2022, it would be incredibly easy for a company to be able to just pay someone $50. It should be as simple as being on the street, pulling out your wallet and giving someone some cash. It should be even easier electronically. But really, that's not the case. Most of the tools that have been built for paying recipients for companies are focused on, for example, like recurring payments, require registration. And when you're managing a huge, huge volume of recipients, as many of these companies do, if you're running a global marketing campaign, or if you're conducting user research across the world, you're Spotify and you've got users literally everywhere, what do you give to someone in Sweden? What do you give to someone in the US? What if they're unbanked? There are all of these challenging questions where you need one solution to that. You can't just be piecing this together recipient by recipient. So we found that the problem was much, much deeper and harder than we thought it was initially.
So what's the answer? Do you say we want to build like maybe catch us up to where you guys are at today? So now it's come to us and give us a bunch of emails and we'll enter the allocation amount, pay us, and then we'll take a fee and send out an email with gift cards on it to their choice or Amazon or like, yeah, where did you go from there?
Yeah. So let me just give you the 10,000 foot pitch here, which is Tremendous is a payouts platform enabling businesses to pay people with money, gift cards, prepaid cards, and they can even donate money to charity. So this send money worldwide to individuals, and they'll be able to choose what makes most sense for them. Mm-hmm. So it required doing two things initially. One is provide more options to recipients. I think we had just maybe ACH and PayPal. We added gift cards. Gift cards are really great as a payment option for small denominations. We added prepaid cards, Visa, MasterCard. We added charity donations so that companies could send something that was kind of in line with their brand and missions on the social side. And then, two is we built a dashboard for these companies to track and manage this complex process. Because if you're sending it to maybe a few dozen people, it's simple. Use a spreadsheet. But if you're sending to thousands and thousands of people in a given year, you need something that's much more full featured. You need to be able to search by recipient email, maybe participant IDs. You need to be able to resend easily through the dashboard. You need to track, for example, maybe collect tax information for recipients if they receive more than $600. So we ended up building a ton of tools for many different use cases that are all based around the common idea of paying people on a one-off basis. So one-off payouts is really where Tremendous specializes. And the actual user flow is typically a recipient gets an email that will be branded from this company or through Tremendous, but it can't go through the sender's email server too. Goes to the recipient, says, here's your message, click to redeem your money, click through, and then there's a page that shows them all of the options that they can choose from. And the company can choose which options they want to present to recipients. So it can be, again, gift cards, Visa cards, PayPal, CH, Venmo, charity donations. And for some companies, they'll say, let me just turn everything on. For some companies, they might be a health and wellness program. They might say, we're going to remove the Applebee's and Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's pare that down. And then the recipient chooses what they want. And that's it. Super simple. They don't have to register. They don't have to necessarily provide bank account information. They don't need to sign up for payroll, anything like that. So we've just dumbed the process down. So it's incredibly simple for both the sender and recipient. And if you compare that to alternatives that existed, well, companies were, Frankensteining different solutions where it's like, start out, hey, maybe we want to use PayPal, right? PayPal has good coverage. Well, it's good coverage, but it's not 100%. And when you're running a very large campaign, you need 100% coverage because every person you don't have a payout option for that isn't their preferred choice. That's actually a support ticket. And then you're going to need to find an Amazon card. Or if they don't have Amazon, you need to find a Target card. Or if they're international, you might need to find an international prepaid card. So it becomes this almost combinatorially complex project as you have more recipients in more places with more payment preferences. And then we're not even talking about different currencies that you have to deal with. So we manage all of the currency conversions, language translation, and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, interesting. So I have a question for you. So as I think about this, I'm kind of thinking about there's a bunch of things that companies do predictably. When they hire people, they go through, there's a lot of commonalities from like, I got to source a person, I got to interview them, I got to bring them on, I got to pay them, I got to manage them, I got to bring the culture, I have to have a process. Like the vast majority of things that a company does is also the same things that many, many other companies do. So it's like the area where you're really innovative and unique and creative is a very small sliver of the actual things that the company does when you look at like tasks that people do. And I think about this as like, this is one thing that many companies do. They have maybe, like you said, a survey, a reward for a survey, a customer appreciation day, employee bonus or something that they want to send out. I'm sure there's like, the 80-20 rule where there's probably 5 or 6 use cases that applies to many different companies. And then some companies do random things, but companies are still sending money out. That's the problem that they have to people. And when I think about it, I'm like, that's probably a big opportunity for someone to specifically solve that, because PayPal and Stripe and like Amazon, they can't ever solve it, like you said, 100%. So if you almost picture like a map of all the things that companies do, then you start to see startups solve those problems. And sometimes there's like from your problem to the next problem, there's a pretty obvious jump. Like if I'm helping, if I'm building like a CRM for companies to hire people, well, maybe it's like the product roadmap is pretty straightforward. I can let them interview people. I can let them manage people. You can kind of grow out from there. Then I kind of see like almost in this case, and tell me if you disagree, but maybe it's an advantage that Tremendous didn't raise VC, because now you can build a very profitable business and maybe get to, I don't know, tens of millions in revenue, 100 people, and it could be wildly successful for everyone involved if you completely own that niche. For like, I'm thinking about what makes VC businesses gain an advantage on a problem versus self-funded businesses gain an advantage, because you have an advantage in that you don't have to turn into a $1 billion company. Like when you go through YC, expectation is, hey, who do we praise? Airbnb, Stripe, like biggest valuations. So there's that implicit and obvious, explicit expectation. Do you feel that same way? I mean, do you think about like business direction in this way, or I'm curious?
I think it's a very interesting insight. And I think it's true, which is if you are not VC funded, you have more flexibility around what outcomes you have with the business. So you have more flexibility around what markets you target, because you're not going to build a $1 trillion business building software for laundromats, for example, right? And in this case, we're running the business like a growth business stuff. We're VC free, but we're not anti-VC. We think raising money certainly is incredibly valuable in many circumstances. And for us, we haven't raised money for the reason that we haven't needed to. It's not that we've identified a market where we think it puts us at a disadvantage, or that we wouldn't be able to have an outcome that we wanted. It's simply that we were fortunate to have the revenue stream coming from the consumer business that started to fund the corporate business, and that continued to grow. And we just couldn't grow faster than the rate that we were growing. And we're finally at the point where we're kind of above our skis, where we're a team of 50 now, but we were much smaller for many years. And it was very hard to keep pace with the traction that we had based on the infrastructure that we had at the same time. So we're now kind of at the place where we've got product market fit, and we're pushing the stick on go-to-market and trying to accelerate things significantly. So we think this is an enormous market, the B2C disbursement space.
So would you raise?
We would. Yeah. We absolutely would.
Yeah.
We have to have a slightly higher conviction than your average company to raise money, because you're bringing on new partners. You need to make sure all of your expectations align, and things change. They really do change when you have investors. So we need higher conviction to raise money. But look, if we find a campaign that requires, $50 million to spend tomorrow, we're certainly open to it. But first, the most important thing is that we maintain the priorities that we, as the entire company, founders, employees, think are the most important ones, because raising money sometimes is one of my favorite expressions, can make you do unnatural acts. And we would just want to make sure that we were never in a position where we felt that we might be doing something that wasn't in line with the priorities of all the folks that are working at the company right now. So I think you bring on the right partners, and that's not a risk. But you just have to have a very high bar. And I think we're in a very, very fortunate position where we're not looking 6 months out, 12 months out. We need to raise to get to profitability, for example. We're there. So it's just a question of, do we think we can grow even faster by raising money?
Well, the answer to that is yes. You certainly can grow faster by raising. The question is it a trade-off that founders, effectively decision makers want to make for your life? I find it a really interesting conversation, one that probably doesn't happen enough. I raised too much money in a past business. We raised 25 million. We had about, 100K of revenue at the time, big market size. We were building a marketplace. Marketplaces are high valuation to revenue ratio because if you capture the market, it, orders of magnitude more valuable than say like SaaS or something. So like in hindsight, I think it was a mistake because of the trade-offs on the doubles and triples that we could have hit. Like there were no options for single, double, triples. It was like find a $1 billion+ opportunity in the next 3 to 5 years. Otherwise, shut the business down, work on something else that does. And it was a kind of like layered stress, and it was like a layered optics. It was like trying to walk with binoculars on. Like we're like trying to find all the biggest opportunities we could possibly solve. And then there's all this, it's like not worth your time to pick up a $100 bill on the ground because you need to find, a $1 billion bill. And it was a strange kind of it felt almost unnatural. Like, VC is relatively new in the scheme of people starting collective organizations. And I'm always fascinated by people's mental models for making the decisions, especially when you don't need to, especially when you're running a profitable business, because it's like, yeah, you probably could create a story, make a deck, go out, raise 10+ million. And now you have more cash to burn on. It's all about experiments, right? It's like your R&D budget now goes from, I don't know, 50K a month to maybe 500K a month. And you say, maybe there's a market here. Let's throw some people on it. Let's experiment. It's like, that's kind of how I think of the implications of VC when you're running a profitable business. Is like new product line iteration R&D becomes a much bigger part of the scope of the business. You're kind of like swinging for things. But I'm curious if you have any reactions to that, if that makes sense on your side.
I think you're right. I think if you are expanding your product line, going into new areas, going to run a lot of experiments, you need that capital. You need that capital to be able to, make those swings, see what connects. And I think we're in a position where we're so hyper-focused on this market itself. And we're such believers in the payout space and the opportunity here that we don't have an interest in, at least the short term, taking those other swings.
Yeah.
For us, it's really about building the go-to-market function, bringing on the people who are going to help execute the strategy over the course of the next 12 months or so. So honestly, if someone wrote a check for $50 million, we'd have sick offsite. We'd have a really sick offsite, but I don't know how we would deploy that money, at least in any effective way at this point. We're in a position as a business where our challenges are more about growing the organization and getting the right people in the right seats. And that's not a problem that money very easily solves. So, I do think you're right. Yeah, if you raise money, you're definitely much more likely to grow faster, but at least in our circumstances, and I've even talked to VCs about this. Some VCs have said like, yeah, given where you're at, like, I'm not quite sure why you would want to raise, a ton of primary dollars here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think for the vast majority of businesses that are VC backed, I think your point makes a ton of sense, which is, yeah, you've got to find that opportunity, and you can't have that patience to just sit on some market to unfold. You can't just wait for that $1 billion opportunity to appear. You have to go and find it.
Yeah.
And, for us, we've been lucky enough to stay focused on this problem for a long period of time now. And, this approach has worked for us, but it's definitely not right for probably the majority of startups.
Do you think timing is, you guys hit timing on the nose here, like 2018 and 2022? Is this somehow a high growth area for companies sending out payments? Like, are people, and maybe mention what are like the top couple of use cases? Surveys. If a company wants to do customer surveys, learn about their customer base, they pay them $20 or $50 gift card. What are the other type of things people use it for? Companies use it for?
So I think we missed out on at least several years that would have been really great for us to be in this market. But I think we've gotten plenty of good years under our belt. And so let me give you a few examples. And it's the examples that really help explain what is Tremendous. Why are people sending gift cards and Visa prepaid cards? Why would anyone do that? Why is that relevant? And so let me give you the example of, for example, Spotify. Spotify runs market user research campaigns across the entire world. They've got a team of researchers in the US. They're in Sweden. They're in other locations. Of course, they have users everywhere. And so people will take surveys online. They will do sometimes, I don't know, since the pandemic began, but do live studies as well. And there needs to be a way to track and manage that process across a entire team, no less, of distributing incentives. People who might not share the same language, don't share the same currency, you don't know what products they want. It becomes really a hair on fire problem when you have your researchers trying to figure out how to solve payments just to give someone $75 for spending a half hour of their time explaining how they use Spotify. And so that's one case. Marketing incentives are big too. So we've worked with programs like, for example, Google Fiber, where if you refer a friend or another business to use Google Fiber, they'll be entitled to, I forget what the amount is, $100 that you'll receive through Tremendous. And so how else is Google going to execute that? They're going to maintain a sheet of all of these referrals. Maybe they use PayPal, but then who doesn't have PayPal? Who does? Not the problems that you encounter. Then there's employee recognition. Doesn't really work to run that through payroll. If you have all of these different managers just trying to send their direct reports, maybe, $100, $200 at the end of the year, that's kind of a nightmare process to engage with HR about that, to do it through payroll. And instead, you just want them to be able to say, here are a few email addresses, send them $100 each and let them choose what they want. And of course, that has a much nicer display too for the recipients, where branded with a logo, with a message, all of that. Sending something through payroll doesn't quite have that same impact. So those are three big ones, but we've done a ton of stuff. We worked with governments that are trying to incentivize their constituents to get vaccinated. We've worked with a furniture company that needs a way to issue refunds because their product is sold through a third-party marketplace. They're selling it through Walmart, so they don't have the credit card details to refund the purchaser if there's a manufacturing defect. So they'll use Tremendous to send them $100.
Interesting.
We've worked with banks that are giving rebates on closing costs.
Yeah.
So it is all over the map. Companies pay people for all sorts of things that aren't related to the work and services that they perform.
Yeah. And what's total market size in your estimation?
So within the US, B2C disbursements is $10 trillion per year. Now, some of that's relevant, some of that's not. If you look at just rewards and incentives, so that would be, for example, survey incentives, marketing incentives, employee recognition, that's somewhere between $100 and $2 billion, $100 and $200 billion per year in the US. So the bottom floor here is really around several $100 billion in spend per year, but more likely in the trillions annually.
Wow. And why do you think this hadn't been, or is it a crowded space? Like, why had it not been pursued heavily, even with VC? I mean, get really any market size over like 3 billion, 4 billion really deserves and can warrant VC funding and smart people working on this. Was it a crowded space when you entered? I imagine there's other players that are, doing a similar thing now.
I think companies have hacked together solutions that have kind of worked.
Yeah.
And so they used PayPal. Or if you're the CMO of a company and you're trying to figure out what digital rewards are we going to use for incentives, yeah, let's go and use Amazon. That's pretty easy, but it starts to fail at a certain scale.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of companies have taken an approach to payouts that's not right and not focused on one-off payouts. And it's hard to identify this opportunity because when I started throwing out, well, there are governments incentivizing their constituents to get vaccinated. You've got employee recognition. You've got paying people for survey incentives. Those things don't naturally click, right? That's not obvious. And only when you dig deep and you understand kind of what that underlying issue is, the problem that they're solving, does become clear. It's one-off payouts. And so I don't think anyone goes into payments who's not super experienced thinking, hey, yeah, that's a problem I want to solve. And look at companies that have done payouts, PayPal, their Stripe payouts. They're really focused on a recurring solution. So for example, marketplaces. Now that's a tough game. And there are a number of skeletons in that warfield. And nothing really worked out super well there because there are just so few players that have really large volumes. And the margins are very, very slim. So it's one-off payouts that's really an attractive market in our opinion. And I think a number of companies have tiptoed around it. There are companies that are focused on rewards and incentives, just focused on maybe employee gifting. There are companies like Sendoso that are focused on marketing incentives. How do you engage your prospects? How do you get them to sign up for a meeting? But none of these companies have focused on what is the core underlying problem of, damn it, how do you just give someone $50? So that's what we're trying to solve. That's what we've identified as the key problem across all of these spaces.
How big an influence is, sorry to cut you off. How big an influence is crypto? I would imagine that many people statistically would rather get $50 in Bitcoin or USDC than a $50 gift card. Like it just has more utility to it. It's more expensive to get, like, gift cards they have attributes that make them less attractive than money and certainly less attractive than crypto in some ways. Is that on the radar? Is that an influential part of how you think about growing the business or insignificant?
We respond to customer recipient demand and just haven't been there.
Okay.
Well, these folks want something that they can spend very easily. So for example, if you take a look at people who are responding to surveys online, they just want to toss that $50 in their Amazon account and purchase, some towels or whatever it is. They just want something that they can use, or they want money to their bank account to spend however they want. But if it can't get to fiat, if it can't be spent very, very easily, I think there's a huge disincentive to choose that option. We've dabbled with crypto, tried to see what the demand is. It's a very tiny sliver of people who want to choose it, because especially when you're dealing with like $50, translating that to crypto. If you've never used crypto before, that's not a sizable amount where like, that's where my investment in this space is going to start. And if you do have a crypto investment, it's much larger. You're probably not thinking, oh, how am I going to transfer this $50 into that other location on Coinbase or FTX or whatever it is. So, we're not against it. We're open to it. We've added many, many options because it becomes more prevalent amongst consumers. And I think as adoption continues to increase, then yes, I do expect at some point we'll probably offer crypto. But I don't foresee that being in the next year.
Yeah. Next 5?
Maybe towards the end of that.
Yeah. I think it'll be, what influences that? Inflation, as people desire to hold USD less because of inflation, then alternatives become more desirable relatively. Probably crypto companies, as there's more VC-backed, large, successful crypto companies, they're probably going to want to send, maybe they do it themselves, probably not. I mean, if the pattern continues that companies need 100% integration, then they're probably just going to partner with somebody like you guys. But I think crypto companies sending worldwide, crypto companies usually are pretty international. So I would imagine companies who are international desire to have it managed by a centralized platform more than doing it themselves, because people have different payment preferences all over the place. It's interesting. Any other things that are like dynamic or exciting to you in the market, or things you've learned about, either in payments or gift cards or anything else more broadly?
I mean, gift cards it's an unusual space.
It is.
And it's very unusual. And it's hard to believe the numbers.
Yeah.
We had no idea when we got into this space, what the market looks like at all. And there are different segments. There's consumer, there's corporate, there's the secondary markets, which are a whole nother story.
That's crazy. That's where we played in. So we were like, we would do Bitcoin to get secondhand gift card trading. So as an on-ramp for people to get into Bitcoin, you'd like buy a gift card, trade it online. That's a whole crazy world.
Yeah. But what are some of the are there any shady characters that you encountered in that world?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just by nature of the attributes of the money, it attracts people to either, you never know, like you never know someone's actual incentives. You can only speculate by like what they're saying, or is intuition, or where they're located, or time of like, but I never know. Like I haven't, honestly, it's complete speculation, but like a lot of it goes through Nigeria. A lot of it goes through China. A lot of it is like traded through multiple middlemen. And it's like, well, why do you need multiple middlemen to do that? And there's always some story, but it's like, why take a 30% discount on this gift card? Like, was it stolen? Like, where'd you, like, so there's a whole bunch of question marks that are kind of stressful.
Totally. Yeah. I've chatted with a few folks who've worked in the space of secondary markets, and at least one of them, I would never touch that again. That was some scary stuff. And, I don't know the details, but yeah, there are a lot of those questions where you have to say, why are you going through the hassle and getting less money out the other end than kind of these other alternatives that seem like a better approach? And, we've been focused, we've done consumer, we've done corporate, we've done those angles. And those are also, weird and intriguing in different ways. And the volumes at play here, it's the hundreds of billions of dollars for gift cards. It's such a boon for these businesses that it's advertised everywhere. And, it is an advantage for consumers in some cases. You've got, some perverse incentives in some places, but overall, I think it is a good tool for consumers.
What's an advantage for a consumer, would you say?
Well, for example, B2C payouts, again, where you just want to give someone $10 because they said, if you refer your friend, we're going to give you this incentive. They don't need to have a PayPal account.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazon basically as good as cash.
Yeah.
To the top retailers, I think that they're seen as good as cash without requiring registration or bank account details, anything like that.
And what's like average slippage numbers for if a company sends out 1,000 gift cards, how many of them actually get redeemed, do you think?
Through Tremendous, for example?
Sure.
Or generally like what Amazon, like how many, what percent of a rocket does Jeff Bezos's card fund?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess you probably know Tremendous more in detail, but I would imagine they're about the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's typically less than 10%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends on the use case, but I mean, we have clients where that number is virtually zero. And then others where it's higher, but it just depends so much on the denomination and the use case itself that it's hard to project for any individual company, what that might look like. If you're talking about like retailers, like Amazon or Target, I've heard those numbers are somewhere in the 6 to 10% range. But my guess is for smaller retailers, it can get much higher.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole world as well, like Blackhawk, the network that issues the cards, like it's a pretty centralized industry in that if you're Amazon, I don't know if Amazon, I think Amazon does their own actually, but if you're, for most other merchants, they're using a service, Blackhawk, and there's another one, forget the name of Income, that's right. And they issue, they keep track, they integrate with all the point of sale systems that all the stores, like, do you steal gift cards from a CVS? They're not worth anything because they haven't been activated. So there's a whole centralized database. I've thought about, could you move gift cards on chain and have the activation integration with the point of sale be an on chain, tokenized, like cryptographic, on chain event. So you can say, okay, this card was just activated. It's on chain. It's not in a centralized database. My basic conclusion, curious if you have any reaction, is that it's so entrenched that it would be difficult. I don't know. I still think it's possible, but I think it's super, super hard.
Yeah. I guess my feedback there is, who the central authority should be in these cases. So for example, if this is an Applebee's card, Applebee's or some partner of theirs should be the authority on ledgering who owns these funds. I don't think going off chain to, you don't need trust between unknown parties for this product. I think it's fine to have one central authority, especially because you're buying it to one particular retailer. And, you're entrusting them in many different ways by just buying a gift cards to that entity in the first place.
Yeah. Cool, man. Any particular people, books, places that you've learned a lot from over the years?
People, places, books. Well, it started with YC.
Yeah.
I learned a ton. I remember, what's funny is, got exposed to Paul Graham and his writing, I think maybe four years before we did Y Combinator. I had an internship at Bridgewater, the hedge fund in Connecticut, which if you want to talk about culture, that's a whole nother story. And I mean, people didn't know about Bridgewater back then, and all the principles and stuff have been popular since. But before arriving in Westport, Connecticut that summer, I received a package in the mail. It was Hackers and Painters, Paul Graham's essays. I remember that being very influential about how I thought about technology, startups, business, programming. I thought it was really, really incredible. And of course, getting the opportunity to get his feedback on our business. This was when Paul Graham was actually still an active partner in Y Combinator, was really, really cool. Just seeing the way his mind operated. Eventually, you get to a point with your business where it's very, very tough for any partner, despite how many startups they've seen, to give you really strong, actionable advice about what become niche problems for your business that requires so much domain expertise. So the feedback that we got from YC early on was really, really tremendous, especially because I was coming from a background in finance. My co-founders hadn't started a business before. So working with those people who had gone through the process of getting a product off the ground, talking to investors, talking to the media, all of that stuff was really, really incredibly helpful. And I'd recommend it to any early entrepreneur. Until you get to the point of having a ton of domain expertise and having different problems where you need a mentor in that space, just start with Y Combinator's, Y Combinator's essays and advice. I think it's really, really great.
Yeah. Do you actively engage with a mentor at this point, advisor, like outside the company, or not so much?
Not so much. I work with an executive coach. That's helpful, but not anyone within the industry. For example, I have a number of peers that have been really helpful. I think just working with really smart friends over the years has been as valuable as anything, right? They're the ones I found at the company with friends. They have the domain expertise. They're incredibly bright. They're unafraid to give any type of feedback. I think that's been the most instrumental in my own growth, is being able to work with really, really talented friends who are vested in the business and hopefully care about me.
Totally. Cool, man. Well, congrats, Nick, on all the progress. Seems like a really fun business to grow. And you sounds like you guys have an awesome niche, profitable, really exciting. Thanks for hopping on, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. This was super fun.
Cheers.